Yeah, it was fantastic. And I must be honest, I think in the summer when Arsenal signed him and I had my Liverpool hat on and I looked at the signings Arsenal made, and besides Gyökeres, it felt like a lot of them were to strengthen the squad, really. So where Arsenal had problems the year before was when Saka was out, so they bought Madueke. Odegaard was out, they got Eze. One of the centre-backs was missing, so they got a couple of centre-backs. It was only really Gyökeres who felt like he was going to go into the team. And if I'm being honest, I think if Havertz was 100% fit, Havertz would probably be the centre-forward in this team, I think. So when Eze came, I thought, OK, maybe it's not a game-changer. And Les knows him a lot better than me. He still said earlier on the show, there's still more to come. But then we've still seen some of his highlights this season. There were still a few great goals in there, and then he goes and scores a hat-trick. So, apologies. I think I've certainly undervalued the importance that signing was, because he looks like he could make the real difference for Arsenal this season and go on and win the title. And
apart from the sort of skill in scoring the goals and his overall contribution to the game, the composure, Thierry, was admirable from Eze.
Well, if you looked at Palace before, you would have seen that composure. You know he has that composure. He's calm. The way he speaks is the same way. But what I like with him is the way he, in the game today, he finds a way to be in and around the box, especially on one of the goals. You will see he pulls away from everybody to make sure he can have time to execute, and we all know he can finish. I know he's with us now, but when you look at him at Palace and the way they reposition him under Arteta, suddenly, as a 10, he started to see the game a different way with a guy that can play for him. And obviously today was different because he didn't have a proper 9 with him. But that's why I think it was easier for him to get in the box today, because he didn't have the presence of a 9. He was a 9 at times.
Yeah, there was nobody getting in his way. It was him, and he took the goals so well, Les.
Yeah, he did. The first one we see here just gets himself into the position as he says, Timber does really well here, goes into the gap, crosses it. This is not a great clearance from Danso, but here shows his foot movement and then strikes the ball lovely.
VAR did have a look at the Arsenal players. There's a few of them offside here, and whether or not they were in Vicario's eye line. I mean, I feel like the decision, we should look at every decision individually, but I feel like this would be a bigger talking point if this had been a narrow 1-0 victory.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way you can't look at this and say they don't impede his eyesight. You look at it here, look. There's no way that doesn't impede his eyesight, but, when up in VAR, there's someone else up there and doesn't think it does. I don't see how not.
But if you go back to that goal, is Zubimendi making a run.
Yeah, look.
And your number 10 shooting. Look at them. You have no 9s. So that's why all that talk all the time that, yes, you need a 9, like you need a goalkeeper to play football, but it doesn't mean that if you don't have a 9, you can't score. As it's been shown there, is Zubimendi making a run in behind first?
Yeah, and as we saw there, Vicario saying that he couldn't see. He was saying he was unsighted. That made it 2-0 to Arsenal, and then Eze got the second, his second and Arsenal's third.
Yeah, just after half-time again, and again very similar. This kept happening a lot through the game, where Arsenal had outnumber Spurs on that right side, and they'd play it inside, drag the 2 central midfield players over the side of the pitch. Bentancur, Paulinho, nowhere to be seen on the edge of the box. And listen, it's a wonderful finish. Of course it is from Eze, but this happened continually in the first half. And this is a problem with the system that they played. The space is always on the outside of the 2 central midfield players. And I'm sure that's something that Arsenal would have spoken about before the game. And it's worked an absolute treat.
Look at the position again of Eze. At the very beginning, he's your 9. And you know who frees him? The run of Declan Rice. Again, your holding midfielder. If he doesn't make that run, he's intelligent enough to know that he has to go the other way to pull away and then to finish. But he's the 9 at the very beginning, once again.
That's his left foot, his right. His first one with his right foot, that with his left foot, and that was equally as good a finish as the first one on his right foot.
He said in his interview with Pat that he prayed for a hat-trick, and that was it. The first hat-trick in a North London derby since December the 23rd, 1978.
That was a lot of prayers, I guess, because, since 78, no one has done that before. You have a lot of great guys that have played in that derby. When you think of guys like the late one, Kane, myself, Ian Wright, I can name a lot of strikers. People will be upset and I forgot some, but it's actually number 10. But for me, on the night, look at where he is. That's your 9.
But I think that's a really interesting point. And it comes back to something that you were saying, I think, across the course of last season and even across the summer, Jamie, which is that a number 9 wasn't necessarily the answer to Arsenal's problems. It was about creating chances elsewhere on the pitch.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I never felt there was always this thought they needed a goal scorer. Of course, they needed to score more goals, certainly last season, to compete with Liverpool. But Arsenal in general play didn't create enough. That was a problem for them last season. So no matter who your striker is, if you're not creating chances for him, he's not there to finish. But he's made a difference with that. And even this season, when we go back to very early on, if you go back to the game at Anfield, that was almost like the Arsenal of last season. Very strong defensively, but not really looking like scoring, going forward. And I don't know if can't remember exactly. Was Newcastle the next game after that? Or I think Eze came in basically rather than. There was a lot of criticism around Marino playing, I think, at Anfield instead of Eze. Eze comes on late into the game. And then I'm certain Eze plays at Newcastle away. And you just felt like there was a difference. Yeah. And it just feels like his introduction, his signing, which I felt, to be fair, would just be something that would be to sort of back up Odegaard. Odegaard's out at the moment. But as you said before, Odegaard's got a real fight.
And you know that I thought differently. I said to myself, first and foremost, he's a 10. And Martin Odegaard will have competition. And when you're at a big club, as it should be, you would have competition. In your time, in my time, if you have an hour. If you don't score, Kanu comes on, Wilton comes on. And at the very beginning, I had to find a space to make sure that I could make myself available and make sure that I could perform for the team. But like I said, for me, he's a 10, and I say it again.
Henry, Carragher, and Ferdinand delivered a fiery full post-match breakdown after Arsenal's dominant 4-1 win over Spurs, praising the Gunners for their control, intensity, and clinical edge. Henry highlighted the hunger and fluidity in Arsenal's attack, insisting that this kind of performance shows a team maturing into genuine title contenders. Carragher focused on the tactical discipline, noting how Arteta's game plan suffocated Tottenham from start to finish. Ferdinand added that Arsenal's confidence was obvious, saying the players looked like they truly believed they were the better side in every department. The trio also pointed out how Iza's brilliance set the tone of the night, with his movement, creativity, and finishing completely dismantling Spurs' defensive structure. They agreed that this wasn't just another derby win, this was Arsenal announcing their intentions in the strongest possible way. With the win pushing the Gunners further into the title race conversation, all three pundits concluded that if Arsenal maintain this level, the pressure will be firmly on Manchester City and Liverpool for the rest of the season.